Alright guys, in this video we're going to practice solving for variables in formulas. It's a useful skill to know how to do in calculus, so thought we would review it. So we'll start with some easy things and gradually take it up a little bit as we go. I'm going to do some teacher examples, and after all of these there'll be some student practices for you guys to do. You get points for writing down the teacher examples and for doing the student practice. So let's begin. So here's my formula, and I want to solve for W. So I have V equals L times W times H. Basically, to get W by itself, you do the opposite of whatever the other letters are doing to the W. So since I have L times W and H times W, I would divide H and L on both sides. And on this side, the H and the L cancel out. And now I've got W by itself. You guys are probably thinking, oh, that's not a big deal, Mr. Bailey. Well, that's fine. Some of them probably will be kind of simple, but there'll probably be some that'll challenge you a little bit too. So that's our first one. Let's go ahead and take a look at yet another example here. If I can. Oops. All right, number 2. This one we want to solve for y2. So that's this guy right here. I'll write it bigger. It's kind of hard for me to work with it when it's so tiny. Okay, so I want to get this one by itself. Now, I need to get rid of a couple things. I need to get rid of this y1 here. Since it's being subtracted from the y2, I need to add it, but we can't do that as long as this denominator's here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the denominator. And the way you get rid of a denominator is the way we've always done it, which is by multiplying both sides by the denominator. So now these cancel, and now I'm left with x2 minus x1 times m equals y2 minus y1. And now to get the y2 by itself, all I need to do is just add the y1 on both sides. These cancel out. And now I have x2 minus x1 times m plus y1 now equals y2. And that's it. Okay, so we got the y2 by itself. Let's take a look at another example. On this one we want to solve for L. A lot of times if the one that you want to solve for is in parentheses, you're going to start by distributing first. So if I distribute we have that. Now to get the L by itself, we need to divide by 2, and we also need to subtract the 2W. And typically, whenever the decision's between addition, subtraction, and multiplication or division, you're going to do the addition or subtraction first. So I'm going to start by subtracting 2W on both sides, and then I'm going to get the L by itself finally by division here. So there you have it. L equals P minus 2W over 2. All right. So typically if the one you want to solve for is in parentheses with something outside the parentheses, you can distribute first, typically. I won't say always, but not uncommon. And don't forget, addition and subtraction comes before multiplication and addition, typically. But once again, that's not always the case. You just kind of got to know your algebra a little bit. So just kind of hoping by doing a couple examples here, we'll kind of stimulate your algebraic intuition. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one here, number 4. We want to solve for G on this guy. So the first thing I would do is I would get rid of the denominator. And typically when you have a fraction, yeah, that's what you will do. You'll want to get rid of the denominator first. So I'm going to multiply both sides by d squared. So if I multiply the left side by d squared, the f will now have a d squared with it. And if I multiply the right side by d squared, the d squared cancels out. And this was supposed to say m1. That's a typo. So we have M2, M1. And then now if I want to get G by itself, both of these M's are multiplying the G. So I would just divide both sides by M1 and M2. And that'll do it. Now there is a faster way to do this one. We could have technically done this. So here's the beginning of the problem, right? Just multiply both sides by the reciprocal of everything you want to get rid of there. So, but that only works whenever you have only multiplication division present like this. If we had any pluses or minuses, that wouldn't work. But you could just multiply both sides by this. And that cancels that, and that cancels that, and the G is completely by itself, and then once you put these together, you get the same thing. So that's fine too. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one here. Now what makes this one a little bit tricky is that the one that we want to solve for is in the bottom, okay? So the way that you're going to handle that is the first thing you're going to want to do is get it out of the bottom. Okay, multiply both sides by W. That way, we don't typically move the letter that we want to get by itself. We move everything else away from it. But whenever it's in the denominator, you need to get out of the denominator. Now we can move everything else away from it. So now I would just divide both sides by C and D. And on this particular problem, they're using different letters for this D and this D, so I don't think we can assume those are the same variables. If they were the same variable, we could reduce that, but I think since one's capital and one's lowercase, we're going to assume that those are different variables, and we'll call that our answer there. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at another one. And this one is probably the most important one for problems that I see come up in calculus a lot. So on this one, I didn't put what to solve for, but what I'm going to do is we're going to solve for x. So let's put that, solve for x. All right. So first of all, you'll notice that the one that I want to solve for, there's two problems. The first problem we've already dealt with. The one I want to solve for is in parentheses. And I told you that when the one that you want to solve for is in parentheses, typically you're going to distribute first. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so the other weird thing is that we have two x's here. All right, so now when you have that situation, what you want to do is you want to get everything that has an x on one side of the equation and everything that doesn't on the other side. So I'm going to subtract the 2y off of this side, and then I'm going to put it over here on this side also like so. And then I'm going to move this negative, I'm going to subtract the 4xy, so it's no longer on the right, and I'll put it over here on the left with the 3y. And let's take a look at what we have left. So I've got a 3x, right? And now I've got a minus 4xy equals negative 5, and then minus 2y. So I've got everything that has an x on one side and everything that doesn't have an x on the other side of the equal sign. The next step is to factor the x out. The one that I want to get by itself, I'm going to factor it out. I dropped my microphone if you're wondering what that sound was. So if I take an x out of both of these terms, it would look like this. And then the last thing I do to get the x by itself is this whole thing is multiplying the x, so to get rid of it, I would divide it out. And this would be my final answer. Okay, and that's that. So hopefully that was helpful. And there's some practice problems on here for you guys also, so I'll let you guys work on those. and we'll see you guys in class. Bye-bye.